Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all. Thank you for joining this webinar on integrating district energy into energy, land use, and urban planning, brought to you under the Global District Energy in Cities initiative, coordinated by the UN Environment. And this session is being hosted by ICLEI, one of the partners of this global initiative. My name is Marques. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. I'm based at the ICLEI World Secretariat in Bonn, and this is the program that we propose to you today. We'll begin with an introduction to the initiative from UN Environment. I'll then take over again to discuss a little bit of the opportunities that integrating energy, district energy into energy master planning and policies offered to us. And then I'll hand over to Nico Tillie from Delft University, who will share with us a little bit on energy mapping, scenarios, and also the experiences of the city of Rotterdam. And then we'll hand over to the Sustainability Solutions Group, Yuill Herbert, who will present the plan for district energy tool. And finally, we'll have the opportunity to hear from the city of Vancouver, Chris Glauber, Neighbourhood Energy Manager, who will tell us about Vancouver's zero-emission buildings plan and the neighborhood renewable energy strategy, and zooming in on a particular case of the Southeast Falls Creek Neighborhood Energy Utility. So this is a very good program. I hope you'll find it interesting. We'll still reserve time for questions and answers. We have with us in the session people from Europe, from North America. We do have representatives from several sectors, and we do encourage you to interact with us, particularly if you represent a local government or municipal energy utility. We look forward also to hear from you on your key priorities and your questions, so that we can have some interaction here with all the speakers. And we'll wrap up with the upcoming activities. So just a quick information on the house rules, let's say, before we get started with the presentations. Just to say that all the participants are muted. This is just to have better sound quality. You'll have the chance to interact with us, though, by using the questions panel to type your questions, and then we'll make sure that in the question and answer section, we'll have the opportunity then to discuss and answer your questions. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the speaker from UN Environment, Benjamin Hickmann, affiliate with UN Environment, who will now give us a quick intro on the Global District Energy in Cities initiative. Then I would like to hand over to you. I would like to ask you also to present yourself. Okay, very good.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Oh, sir, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining this webinar, and thanks, Anna, for hosting it from ICLEI side. You may have already seen these slides before, so I'll rattle through them quite quickly, but the UN Environment, along with some lead partners such as Danfoss, ICLEI, and UN Habitat, set up this global initiative to accelerate district energy in 2014, and since then we've been working to build a network of partners which are interested in helping this acceleration. Some of them you can see on the screen there. With the main aims being to raise awareness globally of district energy, to demonstrate district energy in new markets, and support capacity building for local governments and national governments on district energy, to help implement new policy frameworks that will unlock new markets for district energy, and to scale up and replicate some of the lessons that are learned through this, with the overall objective of this market transformation. At the moment, we're working across 6 countries. We have 40 champion cities that we are in contact with, that we use to promote best practice policies and regulations and business models, as well as 36 partners from across the private sector, international organizations, non-profits. Some of them are speaking here today on the call with SSG, one of the partners of the initiative, ICLEI as well, and Rotterdam and Vancouver both being cities, champion cities of the initiative. So what does it mean? At the global level, we've been trying to work to raise awareness. So at COP21 and COP22, we managed to get district energy onto the agenda more than it was before, in several events raising the profile. We've worked with other organisations to ensure that district energy is included in the new urban agenda, which was developed in Quito at Habitat 3. And also we're working now with how one of the new task forces of the G20, which is going to be on district energy, which is about promoting the regulatory and policy environments that will accelerate the market. So that's really at the global level, but as I said, we're working with 6 countries in detail. These are our pilot countries. You can see their names there, and really the work here is to sort of demonstrate policies, technologies, even methodologies for accelerating district energy within specific cities within these countries. Help then those lessons to be replicated nationally, and then further on how they can be replicated regionally, which is the ultimate goal of the initiative, to regionally replicate these best practices. Just a quick example of what we've been doing so far, which is a success story in our eyes. We've been working with the city of Banja Luka in Bosnia-Herzegovina for about a year and a half now. They've got huge issues with their district heating system, with a lot of corrosion of pipes, a lot of disconnections. The district heating system was mostly run on heavy fuel oil, so extremely expensive fuel costs, as well as very polluting. So what the city really needed was a neutral assessment of the next steps the city needed to take with the district heating system, whether it should be continued, whether it merited further investment. So we completed that with support from the CTCN, which is the Climate Technology Centre and Network. And this really set out a sort of vision for the network, as well as a priority investment programme, which, by bringing along the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, we've now managed to attract new financing into the city, very low concessional financing, as well as refinancing of some of the existing credits that the city had. So it's a big success. It's still ongoing, and if anyone's interested in hearing more about this or seeing the report, feel free to email us. And then just to say, we just over a year ago now released a report on what was a culmination of 45 cities' best practices into a report which sets out the best technology options and the benefits they've given with district energy, the city policies, including the topic of today around energy master planning and how to integrate energy into your urban planning policies, business models and national policies. And this has really given us a framework for how to support the cities under the initiative, by taking them through some of the best practices and inspiring them, or using methodologies which have been ground tested in other areas of the world. So that's a very quick introduction. If anyone is interested in hearing more about the initiative, you can reach us through the contact details at the end. So I'll pass back to you there, Anna.
Thank you very much, Ben. Let me now show you my slides. and I will move quickly. I would appreciate if you could just confirm that you can hear me well, Louisa.
Yes, everything's going fine.
Okay, great, thank you. So once again, this is indeed a good opportunity to talk about how the integration of district energy into energy master planning and land use policies and urban planning can improve the viability of district energy. So this initial slide tries to highlight some of the factors that indeed contribute to that viability, some of those that are the key determinants. And you will see that indeed through energy master planning and urban planning and policies, changes can be made, improvements can be made. So, of course, district heating or cooling is viable if there is a potentially high heating and or cooling density and stable base load throughout time, not just throughout the day, but ideally throughout the seasons, so that you can really make the best of the investment in terms of your installed capacity. Of course, the fuel costs and access to fuel is also very relevant to the assessment of the viability of district energy. So the existence of local sources of low-cost thermal energy can be a very significant driver towards going for district energy. On the other hand, as well, comparatively high alternative technology costs can also contribute to the viability of district energy. Of course, this is very context-specific, but the regulatory framework and the incentive schemes that exist can also play a role, both regarding the potential for the sales of heat and for the sales of electricity, heat and cooling, sorry. The existing energy infrastructure and access, the local availability of suppliers, technologies and skills, etc. These will also have an influence on the investment necessary for district energy. So really creating a process that from the beginning brings in the different stakeholders that can play a role, not just the municipal departments, the energy utilities, but also stakeholders like the developers, like housing associations for the end consumers, and so on. These can help in identify opportunities and develop a business model for district energy. Of course, the energy master plan can then consolidate this integration, and it will then inform, hopefully, the land use planning and policy, the land use policy and regulation that will then trickle down to the approval and licensing, permitting and licensing processes of new developments and redevelopments, and also energy infrastructure. So with this, we really have a big opportunity to really optimize energy and infrastructure investments and future-proof the energy system, increase load certainty and reduce risks, increase investor confidence, and overall enhance district energy viability. So here's a brief outline of how to do this. Of course, this is a simplification, but we can already list in these different phases quite a few of the steps, and throughout these different steps, all the way from the beginning of the process with the leadership or champion engagement and mobilization of the organization, all the way down through to assessments of the local district energy potential, the energy master planning itself, the review of policy and regulation, and then the implementation and strategy. All throughout this process and the different phases, there are different tools that can support us, and today we'll be looking at several of these. So, for example, we we will take a look at a tool that can support in guidance and capacity building. I would now present that, but I'm going to do a quick change just to interrupt and hand over to Nico Tillie because he's pressed for time and he will not be able to stay with us throughout the entire session. So I would now like to invite Nico. Nico is the chair of landscape architecture with the Department of Urbanism of the Delft University of Technology, and he will share with us today on some of the tools and some of the exercises that have been done regarding energy mapping. Nico, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, and all a warm welcome here. So yes, I would like to speak a bit and talk a bit about some examples from Delft University and what we have applied in Rotterdam. So basically, why is it not moving? Ah, there it is. Okay, so basically, linking spatial planning and energy planning is something we came across a few years ago when we had the Rotterdam Climate Initiative, and basically we were confronted with all these sectoral approaches, for instance looking at residential and services, transport, industry and food, and of course each with its own topics and goals to reach. And this was very interesting, but at the same time, at the spatial planning department, we could not link this well enough to energy planning. So we said, how can we link this to next steps? There it is. So from a list of solutions, we said, let's go to a spatial inclusive strategy for an energy transition and for also improving quality of life of the citizens. And from that vision to a tailor-made plan in our neighborhoods. So of course, since the 1980s and 90s, we knew a lot about energy and buildings. Energy positive buildings have been around since the 1990s. But how to scale up to neighborhood, district and city level. And of course, this is one, say, the Trias Energetica, which says at building level, reduction of energy demand. Energy not used is the best to save, of course. Then if there is energy needed, let's generate it sustainably, have renewables, and then provide clean, efficient fossil fuels energy. But looking at these energy positive buildings already, we noticed that one important step was not named in this Trias Energetica, and which is actually the second step now, which is the utilize of waste flows. So we have reduction of demands, utilize waste flows, generate sustainably, and then we can cross out the fossil energy demand. So the first step would be indeed looking at neighborhood level energy per CO2 and CO2 per housing typology. So mapping what each house is using in the neighborhoods. Then we knew what reduction potentials there would be and what quick wins we could have in all buildings. So this is all done in GIS mapping. But having in mind this new step strategy, this Trias Energetica with the exchange of waste flows, we thought, well, if we can do that for one building, why not scale it up with more buildings or districts and neighborhoods so that we can exchange energy between buildings, but also between neighborhoods. And this is how the Rotterdam energy approach and planning came into place. So we linked actually these 4 steps, or these 3 steps of reduction of demand, reuse of waste flows, and production of sustainable energy from building to neighborhood to district and city level. For instance, exchanging heat with an ice skating rim and a swimming pool, but also a supermarket which has a 1:7 ratio with apartment buildings, or a greenhouse on top of your roof, a 1:4 ratio. So we looked at these heat exchange ratios between buildings and then tried to scale up. Of course, the next level is scaling up at district or even at city level. So this is a master plan of the city of Rotterdam where district heating is laid out and actually implemented. And so peeling off these different steps, which is again reduction of demand, exchange of waste flows, the third step would be renewable energy. And for us it was extremely important to link this spatial planning to the energy planning part. For instance, here we have a neighborhood in the province of Groningen where 3,000 new dwellings were being built. We have the electricity demand at 10.5 gigawatt hour electricity and the heating demand ready. And of course, renewables ask a certain amount of square meters. So let's say here on the left of this David McKay graph, you can see how much watt per square meter can be gathered per square meter, and that was important information. And with this information we could also make maps, for instance how much sun we can harvest, and we see also the gigawatt hours electricity and thermal we can get from roofs with thermal, geothermal or PV panels. The same we did for wind at 100 meters, wind at 30 meters, energy from waste. So each time waste heat, is there a paper mill, like in this case a cardboard factory, etc. So each time we came up with the figures connected to it. Biomass, for instance chicken manure over here, maintenance of parks, so the biomass from parks, nature and woodland areas. But then from sun going down to the soil, we go now into the soil. What is the potential of heat exchangers from 0 to 50 meters? What is the potential of aquifers for heat-cold storage? And finally, what is the potential for geothermal energy, which, if geothermal energy runs out after 25 years, these wells get colder and colder, and they need 75 years to heat up again. You can also heat them up faster by inserting hot water, so they can act as a storage. So with this, we have this whole stack of information, which the urban planner can then use. So yeah. Let's go back, that wasn't this quick. So, excuse me. So we have a whole stack of information here, and just by providing this information to the urban planner or landscape architect or whoever, which interdisciplinary team is working on this, gives them insight of how to plan neighborhoods, but also existing areas in the city. So just by having this information, 70% of energy efficiency was realized. And of course there are more types of maps around, like this is a heating map, heat mapping for the whole of the Netherlands, where we looked at paper mills, chemical industry, ice skating rinks, supermarkets, geothermal sources, you name it. This is for a whole country. Here we zoomed in more on the Rotterdam region, as there's a high industrial cluster, and here we zoomed in really on the city of Rotterdam, with the hollow cores being the demand and the filled up cores with different sources, how we can actually fill this in. So this is how we looked at this mapping, and this is near the city of Delft, where we also mapped the greenhouses, but also the supermarkets. And for instance, in this example, you see that a greenhouse collects a lot of energy, but also has a geothermal source for heating up the greenhouses, for producing carbon neutral tomatoes, but at the same time heating a swimming pool plus a neighboring school all year round. And that's very interesting combinations, especially if you look at city level. And this study was actually paid for by a bank who was interested in the continuation of these greenhouses, because they were doing less good than previous, because they had too high energy bills. So this is an interesting approach of who can finance these kind of things. Here's just another example of a heat exchange map at regional level. For instance, here the whole region of Rotterdam. And one example here was, for instance, that we brought this to make a whole ring of new district heating at regional level. So Rotterdam, The Hague, Delft, and a few other cities where geothermal heat wells could actually also be used to fill up and add hot water to this district heating network. So we had a multiple source approach, because in future the garbage we now incinerate will be less, so we need different sources to heat the district heating network. So the fourth step in this, remember I had three steps so far, so the fourth step would be how can we feed this information of reduction of demand, exchange of waste flows, and renewables? How can we feed this information into a scenario tool? And there are many tools around. We use the GRIP scenario tool by Sebastian Carney, which was developed in 2007, to actually make a scenario plan for the city of Rotterdam in 2030 and for 2050. And with the stakeholders, we looked at what is the energy mix now and what is the energy mix in future. I won't go into detail of that too much, but this actually gave us the basis to make with GIS maps the optimal district heating locations at the city of Rotterdam. So here, for instance, we have the city of Rotterdam. We linked it to how many dwellings are in the cities, how many district heatings are already connected, where will the new buildings be, where are the hospitals, where is demand, and where is it possible to put pipelines, and where is it for the energy companies worthwhile to invest in. So this has led us to this number, and this is what actually was the basis for a new energy plan, where district heating is a big part of, but not only district heating, because some areas will be covered with other sources, but this made it possible for us to make a tailor-made plan for the whole city of Rotterdam. So thank you for your attention, and I hope I could contribute some nice things to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tillie. It was wonderful to see these very concrete examples. Let me, if you still can spare a couple of minutes, let me check the questions panel. So just to remind the participants that there is the opportunity to provide questions. Tillie, thank you very much. This was indeed a wonderful opportunity to see concrete examples of the integration of district energy into energy master planning, and not just the district heating systems with conventional energy sources, but also the wider use of local renewable resources. So indeed, wonderful to see the examples that you were able to share with us. Nico, I don't know if you need to leave at this time.
No, I can still have 5 minutes. That's okay.
Yes. Okay. So, Louise, I would ask you for your assistance if you see that any question specifically comes in for Nico, and I would ask the participants to flag because Nico may have to leave very soon. So take advantage of this opportunity and benefit from Nico's experience and expertise in this regard. In any case, we'll be happy also to facilitate connection at a later point, just to let you know and to leave the door open for further interaction. Nico, if we don't have the chance, thank you very much once again. Very good to have you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So I'll, in this case, share my screen with you again. Now with a little more ease because we've achieved the purpose of actually hearing from Nico and these great examples that he shared with us. And he perfectly illustrated many of the things that I was trying to capture here in this slide. So I won't dwell on this. I just want to flag that throughout the different phases of this process, it is possible to use some already existing tools. Nico referred to several of these, including, for example, the GRIP tool, which enables actually to facilitate the process of stakeholder dialogue, to bring together to the same table representatives from different areas, energy utilities, consumers, etc., to promote system thinking, and this can be very valuable to identify opportunities and to further develop the business concept for district energy. Nico mentioned, for example, greenhouses and the finance sector. So there are indeed several tools out there. The one I would like to tell you about next is a tool that can support local governments regarding capacity building. It's a tool that, oh, and I apologize, I hadn't maximized my slides. Here we go. The tool I would like to tell you about next is called Solutions Gateway. It's an online platform which is available in this URL, and I invite you to load it in your computer. This has been developed with funding from the European Commission, but it continues even beyond that funding. We continue to make it alive, and currently, thanks to this platform, this cooperation platform that the Global District Energy in Cities Initiative offers, we are in a cooperative effort with several partners within the initiative, developing guidance on district heating and district cooling that are now becoming available. We are finalizing developments. In any case, I'll already be able to share with you some examples. In any case, just before we move on, I would like to highlight a few of the features of the Solutions Gateway and stress that this tool is available to all local governments, and it's free. And it's easy to use. It provides guidance on different aspects of low emission development. It is aligned with local government's rules and usual mandates. It is based on proven practices and technologies. The contents are peer-reviewed, and they are developed taking an integrated approach. This means that it really brings in a lot of multidisciplinary aspects, from policy, regulation, stakeholder engagement, capacity building, organizational aspects, down to finance, technology, and awareness raising. So it really tries to be very comprehensive in the approach to maximize the effectiveness of interventions. So indeed, it can be a very useful first step to start any intervention regarding district energy. I apologize, this is not what I meant to do. What I meant to do was to do a very, very brief virtual tour of the Solutions Gateway, actually. So here we are in the home page, and let me give you just one quick concept. In this platform, a solution is a process or a group of actions, a coherent group of actions that the local government can implement it, and that covers those different aspects that I mentioned before to enhance sustainable and low emission development. So regardless of which button you click here, we are taken to a search page. Then it just varies on the tab where we land. But so we have solutions or process guidance. We then have solution packages, which are groups or clusters of solutions that generate synergies if implemented together. And then we have case studies that illustrate, that document the results of the implementation of the solutions in given cities, in concrete projects, in specific locations. So we do have a solution, for example, and actually there are some filtering tools that we can use. Let me show you this particular solution, which focuses precisely on the process of integrating district energy into energy, land use, and urban planning. And this opens on a separate tab. We have the user lands and has a brief introduction as to why this is relevant, main impacts, key benefits of implementation of the solution. So in a way, it's the high-level introduction to this particular process. But then the Solutions Gateway enables the user to go as deep as the user wants to. So let's see, the user can begin an overview of the key enabler actions that facilitate the implementation of this process. And then it can look at the actions that are the core of the process and look at the actions that actually then contribute to synergies and to multiply the impacts. So in a way, this is one layer deeper, but then, well, is this solution, is this process relevant for your particular local government? And the structure that you are seeing here is a structure that repeats in the different solutions to give the user, and to make it more easy to navigate. So this is a common structure to the solutions, but then of course the contents are specific. So this particular solution is of course very relevant for cities that are growing, and then that then can have the opportunity to promote higher density that will encourage district energy. But it also provides a lot of information regarding the success factors, barriers to overcome, etc., and risks associated with the project or process. It also provides suggested indicators for monitoring the process, for tracking progress. It provides step-by-step guidance. I won't go into the detail, of course. It's just to give you an overview of how comprehensive the information, the wealth of information that you can find here. Now, I showed you an overview section just a while ago, and each one of these sections here, enabler actions, required actions, etc., once again have a similar structure. They cover those different multidisciplinary issues I was talking about, from policy, regulation, governance, etc. So indeed, if you have the chance, if you are interested in district energy, this can be a good place, not just to start, but also to consolidate and make your intervention also bulletproof, trying to make it bulletproof, if we can say so. Finally, I would like to point that there are also case studies, and with this, I don't know if you see here already, the city of Vancouver is mentioned. Of course, this is one of the cases that is highlighted among other cases. So you can see that indeed the Solutions Gateway is a platform. It contains already a lot of guidance, but it also provides additional resources or links to additional resources, already existing resources that are available, and for example, also here, Plan for the EU, of which we'll also have an opportunity to hear in this session. So with this, I don't want to take any longer. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and just to say that indeed this tool is available to all local governments, and in particular the cities that joined the Global District Energy in Cities Initiative will have access to these contents, which we are now fine-tuning, and so during the coming weeks we'll have additional content being made available through this online platform. So with this, I would now like to hand over. I would now like to invite Yuill Herbert, Director for the Sustainability Solutions Group, who will then tell us a little bit about Plan for the EU. And we look forward to this. Yuill?
Great. So can you see my screen and hear me?
Yes. Yes. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Perfect. So hello, everyone. I'm going to give you a quick introduction to Plan for DE, or Plan for District Energy. It's a tool that was developed by a number of different organizations, a really interesting combination of an architecture and planning firm, which is GGLO from Seattle, an industrial ecology firm from Victoria in Canada, Farallon, a Danish consultancy specializing in district energy called EA Energy Advisors in Copenhagen, my organization SSG, a government of British Columbia, and the International District Energy Association. And our idea was that we work a lot on, SSG works a lot on energy and emissions plans for municipalities. And we kind of realized that a lot of district energy projects respond to the built environment, the already existing built environment. And yet a lot of the drivers for it that enable or inhibit district energy are determined by planners. And most planners don't consider district energy when they're looking at city plans or urban design guidelines or so forth. So our goal was to create a tool that planners could use to think about district energy when they're designing the built environment. And so we framed it as optimizing the district for energy, not optimizing district energy. Because there's lots of great tools for optimizing district energy to respond to built environments, but there's not any tools to look at how you make sure the built environment facilitates district energy. So if you look at the development trajectory of a district energy project, typically it starts with a feasibility or pre-feasibility study, and there's some really useful tools out there. Red Screen is one that is used a lot internationally, provided by the Government of Canada. And typically those projects are 3 to 5 years, maybe 2 years before the actual development of the district energy system. If that feasibility study is favorable, then it moves to a design stage. And at this stage, engineering models are typically used, and the analysis of costs has to become more precise. And then finally, it moves to a tender stage where you need much more detailed costing that's much more accurate. So Plan for DE is really positioned at the back end of that process, 5 to 30 years before a district energy system is built. And it's aimed to influence the built environment that ultimately either supports or hinders district energy. So we call it the pre-feasibility period. And the rationale for this is that we know that the built environment locks in opportunities for district energy or locks them out. And we see this in terms of, for example, in a lot of sprawling areas in North America, district energy just isn't feasible because the heat density is too dispersed. Whereas in much more dense areas, it is much more feasible. So this is the land use patterns, and the land use patterns heavily influence the built form, which then determines the energy profile of an urban area, which ultimately influences the emissions. And the organization that has the most levers over land use and built form is local government. And within the local government, it's planners who really have a significant but not the only influence over built form or land use. And so that's the target audience, the primary target audience for Plan for DE. It's something that is accessible to planners that they can use to explore the implications of different patterns of land use for district energy. The way at which it works is that it compares a district energy case versus a business as usual case. And the business as usual case is individual heating in each building, which is in North America at least the default in many places of the world. So it's looking at the total cost, the life cycle cost, as well as the full cost, because we also look at the cost of other pollutants and the price of carbon and so forth of those two options. And so we say it's a viability tool, not a feasibility tool, because we're not assessing whether district energy meets certain conditions that are required and able to build it, but we're considering if it's a preferred option in comparison with individual heating given certain financing or price conditions. So we consider that viability, and it's more of a social lens than a kind of a market lens. The way in which we do this is the planner or the user inputs a number of parameters around the built environment. So floor space, energy use intensity, district area, and the user can define archetypes of buildings or use archetypes contained within the model, and those in turn determine the load of the buildings in that district, as well as the energy consumption, energy use intensity, heat density, and so forth. Once those parameters have been determined, the model then optimizes a district energy system, looks for the most cost-effective combination of technologies. And it uses a number of parameters around capital costs, operations, fuel costs, carbon price, network costs, and power revenue to identify what the optimal district energy system would look like. And the user can also either include or exclude certain technologies or fuels, depending on the particular context. And then it simply compares the district energy option versus the individual option for that particular piece of the built environment. And you end up with this kind of chart. You have a curve. The black curve represents the cost of district energy, which varies according to heat density. As the heat density increases, the cost of the district energy system decreases. and then the blue line represents the cost of individual heating systems. And so the goal of the planner is to ensure that that yellow line is in the green area where district energy is lower cost than individual heating systems. And the inverse is where individual heating systems are cheaper than district energy, and that's the little red triangle. The interesting thing about the model is that for every particular built environment configuration that is developed by the user, this curve changes because the mix of technologies and the size of the district energy system will change. So it's a bit of a moving target once you start adjusting the parameters, which makes it a lot more complicated than it might appear on the surface. There's a number of other additional features or functions within the model. You can explore, as I mentioned, all sorts of different district energy technology mixes. You can add or subtract revenue generation depending on whether it's combined heat and power. It has an algorithm which will generate network length and optimal location of a district energy plant for a particular district. Or you can also use GIS to identify the network length that makes sense in a particular district given other constraints. You can adjust all sorts of other variables such as system lifetime, the heating assumptions, so what mix of heating actually is occurring or could occur in particular buildings. You can incorporate waste heat from other sources and also supply industrial heat demand. And you can look at different currencies. So the data sets within the model right now there's cost curves for European price assumptions and North American, and it's relatively easy to add prices for any other jurisdiction. Just close that. So if I go to, we have 3 different versions of Plan for DE. We have a basic version, an intermediate version, and an advanced version. And the basic version is for the easy, is like a really easy version to play with. And the advanced version is a completely open version of the model where every assumption and parameter can be adjusted. So in terms of applications, you can use it to evaluate development plans, explore alternative development scenarios, scan for district energy potential in existing neighborhoods. So you can use it within existing neighborhoods in addition to looking at the future. And then we think there's all sorts of other applications which we have yet to identify. So we tried this, we ran it for a particular neighborhood in Seattle. We generalized the neighborhood, so it's not an exact example of this neighborhood, but it's more or less. And then we ran it through a series of development phases. In the first phase, you can see the red line on the right represents district energy threshold, and it didn't quite achieve that threshold. But when we ran it through the second phase, we did achieve that threshold for feasible, or in which district energy would be the preferred option. So this was a really interesting finding in that the planners or developers of a potential district energy system would need to plan for a period in which district energy wasn't feasible, knowing that it would ultimately be. So they'd need to be able to scale the system in a way that made sense. And the model can provide a lot of guidance as to how that can work and also how the planners can support that development process. So that's a quick overview of Plan for DE, and you can see the web link here where you can download it, and also a contact email address if you'd like more information. So I'll pass it back over with that.
Thank you very much, Yuill. I would like to remind the participants in the webinar that you can ask questions to the panelists by using the questions that you have in your system interface. I already see here a couple of questions for you, but it would help if when you type your question, you indicate the speaker to whom you wish to direct it. In any case, I'll also help with this, but please feel free to do so. In the meantime, while you think and so on, I would like to introduce our next speaker. So with us today we have Chris Herbert. He's energy manager, neighborhood energy manager with the city of Vancouver. So, oh, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, with this, the floor is yours. A warm welcome, Chris.
Hi. So, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to give a bit of an update on the city's what we call renewable city strategy, what we're doing with buildings citywide, and how neighborhood energy or district energy fits in with that. So in just over a year ago, our city council, just before the Paris event, COP21, our city council approved the Vancouver Renewable Energy Strategy, which strives to get the city of Vancouver to 100% renewable energy before 2050. And within that, one of our key targets here is for all new buildings to be zero emissions by 2030. So this slide shows where we're at today. About 31% of energy in the city right now is already renewable. That's predominantly electricity from hydroelectric power sources, and then we got a lot of work to do on our transportation fuels, and the biggest source of emissions right now is the heating of buildings, so use of natural gas to heat buildings. So further to the city council's approval of the renewable city strategy in July of this year, they approved what we call the zero emissions new building plan. And that zero emissions building plan really lays out the roadmap for how we're going to get to zero emissions with our building stock, and sets the target that we're going to get there for new buildings by 2030 or earlier. This slide shows how GHG emissions have declined in our building stock over recent years. We're at about 14 kilograms per square meter of floor area in a typical new residential building. And looking ahead to 2020, 2025, and 2030, roughly every 5 years or so, we're making a change to our zoning policy and building code to further reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And the reason why we need to do it in an incremental way is so that we're not impacting the affordability of housing in the city. So affordability of housing right now is a huge issue for us. So we have 4 key strategies under the zero emissions building plan, the first of which is strict limits on greenhouse gas emissions and thermal energy demand. So in past years, we were relying on building codes that reference ASHRAE. Well, unfortunately, the key measure with that isn't greenhouse gas emissions, it's energy efficiency expressed in dollars. And that doesn't work very well in a place where natural gas is practically free. So we're moving towards strict limits on end-use energy intensities and GHG emissions. We are taking leadership on new city-owned buildings, so those new community centers and civic facilities will be getting to zero emissions much sooner. Actually, all new buildings like that beginning in 2017 will need to be zero emissions. Then we have some other tools like catalyst tools to incentivize private sector leadership and capacity buildings to help get knowledge and information out there into industry and to reduce some of the barriers that might be there to building green. So we have 2 key pathways to achieving zero emissions for new buildings. The first of which is extremely important, is to reduce consumption, so build much more efficient buildings than we have in the past with better envelopes and ventilation systems. And secondly, we need to increase the supply of renewable energies to the heating sector. and connect those buildings that we can to a neighborhood renewable energy system where it's available. I'm going to just step back in time a little bit and do a case study on our Southeast Falls Creek neighborhood. The Southeast Falls Creek neighborhood is on the edge of downtown Vancouver, and our city council decided in early 2000s that we're going to try some new things in this neighborhood to push the envelope on sustainability and to help us, help inform our plans and policies for other areas of the city. So this neighborhood, it's an 80-acre brownfield site with a history of 120 years of industrial use. Forecast to have 6 million square feet and 16,000 new residents by 2020. And the community is totally designed on environmental, social, and economic sustainability principles. One of the key performance requirements of this neighborhood is to get to as close to zero carbon as possible. And we evaluated early on in the planning process a range of options to get there. And we quickly learned that if we were going to be just focusing on buildings themselves, that we wouldn't be able to get there in a cost-effective manner. Doing one-off geo-exchange or other high-performance heating systems can get very, very expensive at a neighborhood scale, and also difficult to secure that performance over the long term because you don't have control over the buildings in the long term. So through the planning process there, it was determined that a low-carbon district energy system would be the best approach to getting low greenhouse gas emissions in the most cost-effective manner. This slide just helps orient, if you're familiar with Vancouver, it shows where the neighborhood is. And this photo was taken just in the early stages of construction of the Olympic Village back in 2008. The energy utility, so that's been operational now since 2010. It eliminates more than 60% of the greenhouse gas emissions associated with heating of buildings, and that's compared to electricity from hydroelectric, a blend of that and natural gas. And our low carbon energy source, our primary low carbon energy source is waste heat recovery from the sewage system. And then in addition to that, we're also taking a small amount of heat from solar thermal collectors on rooftops of buildings. The customer base for the system has been growing quite rapidly. When we first established it, it was just over 1 million square feet, and now we're at about 4.5 million square feet of buildings connected to it. These are all new developments with the exception of one existing gas-heated building that decided to eliminate its boilers during a renovation and connect to us instead. It's a financially self-supporting utility, so all the costs associated with building and operating, financing, et cetera, are recovered through our user rates. And those user rates are competitive with traditional forms of heating. And like I said earlier, Vancouver and the province that we're in has some of the cheapest electricity and gas anywhere in the world. This map shows the service area. We have 28 large buildings connected to it. When we initially had our business plan to approve to build the system, we were looking at a total build of a customer base of about 6 million square feet. We're now forecasting more than 8, and that's a very conservative forecast. It's likely that's going to go well above 10. And this past year, we've expanded the system to an adjacent neighborhood where we have a new arts university being constructed there. So the business model for the system, it is owned by the City of Vancouver and operated by the city. It's operated within our Engineering Public Works Department. And one thing that we've done here organizationally to help drive the project is we have what we call a steering committee with key representatives of different departments, and that really helps align the staff in the different departments and avoid the situation where you often get in governments where you have silos, different departments not working well together. Our city council makes all the major decisions on the system, from capital investments, policy, and customer rates. And we've also established a third-party independent expert panel which reviews and validates any changes to customer rates or related policy before we take it to council. And the utility, it's financial self-supporting, and it's also operated on a commercial basis as well. So we're operating it with the same ROI that a private sector utility would be receiving. And we did that for a couple of reasons. One, to demonstrate to industry that it's possible, that there's a business opportunity here, and to attract private sector capital and other systems. And also, if one day we decide we want to divest of the utility, we won't have this issue of rate shock being experienced by customers when we switch from city ownership to private ownership, if that happens. This slide helps to illustrate the cost considerations for district energy, and so what we've done is we've looked at a bunch of different energy systems that have been established or approved by our Provincial Utilities Commission. We've looked at standalone energy systems like geo-exchange or air source heat pumps that serve smaller scale, like individual developments. We've looked at district scale systems like the Southeast False Creek system and a couple others, and we've looked at what we call fuel switches of existing legacy heating systems. And on the y-axis, we have the capital cost per ton of greenhouse gas emission avoided, capital cost of the system. And on the x-axis, we have the size of the customer base for each system. So this first collection of plots on the axis, those are building scale systems. They're mostly geo-exchange and air source heat pump systems. They do get to low carbon, but they have a fairly high cost, roughly $8,000 to $12,000 per annual ton of greenhouse gas emission avoided. Next, we have a neighborhood scale system, so like the Southeast Falls Creek system and new systems that are being built in Northeast Falls Creek and River District in the city. So in these cases, the capital cost per ton of avoided is about half of the individual building. And just to be clear, like this isn't applied citywide. Like these neighborhood scale systems target neighborhoods that have high density development. These are not serving single family houses. And then finally, we have fuel switching for existing steam heat systems. So in this case, you don't need to build all new distribution infrastructure. You can just build a new energy center that uses a fuel source like waste wood to reduce the use of natural gas for steam heating. So what we've learned is through our experience in Southeast Falls Creek and doing a lot of research looking at other systems, that neighborhood energy systems, in appropriate applications, namely high energy demand intensity applications or high density neighborhoods, they can achieve zero emissions without radical changes to current building practices. They also enable zero emissions retrofits for existing gas heated buildings. So you can take a building that's operating today, eliminate its gas boilers and connect to a system and get a radical reduction in its GHG footprint just through connection. These systems also enable recycling of waste heat and much better resource management at a local level, and gives us long-term flexibility to achieve GHG emission reductions in the future on buildings that are built today. So, a system in Southeast Falls Creek, for example, the buildings that are getting heat from that system have a GHG emissions intensity of 6 kilograms per meter squared, which is about a third of buildings in other locations of the city. Well, all we need to do over time, we can make changes to the central plant, adding new sources of heat, thermal energy storage, etc. We can drive that 6 down to 0 in the future for a building built today. For a building that doesn't have any system connected to it or any future opportunity to connect, it's very, very difficult to retrofit those buildings in the long term to get them to zero emissions. So taking our lessons learned from Southeast Falls Creek and other research, we developed what we call a citywide neighborhood energy strategy. And a big part of that was we did an intensive mapping effort to identify which areas of the city are viable to heat with neighborhood energy systems, the high density areas. And we also identified the different sources of heat that would be available for those systems, much like the Rotterdam example that was provided earlier. So we have a number of initiatives underway. This map, I apologize, it probably has a little bit too much information. In our downtown core in Vancouver, our highest priority is the low carbon conversion of our downtown steam heat system. It serves more than 210 buildings, and it's the biggest CO2 reduction opportunity in the city. We also have a number of high growth areas of the city, of the downtown, where we're seeing a lot of new development, where we're working to establish new hot water networks. So we have steam heat in the core, and in the long term, that steam will likely be transitioned to hot water. But that's really a long-term priority. It's not as efficient as hot water, but it's not inefficient enough to make the conversion happen right away. We also have a lot of existing gas-heated buildings in the downtown that aren't connected to district energy that we want to connect to over time. So district energy is part of our low-carbon retrofit strategy in the downtown. We have another area called the Canby Corridor, where we have a couple of hospital campuses. We're working with the health authority to convert those to a low-carbon fuel. And we're also working to establish new hot water networks centered around some very large development sites in that area. We have the Southeast Falls SCFC NEU, the Southeast Falls Creek system is growing rapidly. We have another system that was established in 2012 in the River District neighborhood in the bottom right corner that's going to be a similar scale to Southeast Falls Creek. And the plan for that is to capture waste heat from an existing waste incinerator that's located about 4 kilometers away. Then we have a number of red stars here that are sustainable large sites. So if for any development that's going to result in more than 500,000 square feet, we have a rezoning policy that requires the developer to do an energy study to identify an energy system that can get significant reduction in GHG emissions compared to business as usual. As a result of that, the developers do a study, and then they learn through that study, hey, there's a viable option here for getting to low carbon. So I would characterize those as either, some of those are like mini district energy systems where they serve maybe 3 or 4 different buildings. Some of them are just a standalone energy system for a single building, but we've got about 6 systems under development through that policy. So this final slide, it's for inspiration. Change is possible. We are seeing a decline in our greenhouse gas emissions in the city of Vancouver, our community GHG emissions. This slide shows 6% below 2007, but it's actually 15% now below 2007 and 1990 emissions. So our GHG emissions are continuing to decrease here. Over this time period, too, it's worth noting that our population at the same time has increased by about 32%, and the number of jobs is up by 28%. So we're seeing reductions in GHG emissions and at the same time as population and economic growth is happening. So anyway, that wraps it for me. Thanks.
Very much, Chris. That was wonderful. It was really wonderful to hear from the leadership of the city of Vancouver regarding district energy and also the transition to a 100% renewable energy future. Taking a very comprehensive approach regarding the different sectors, the building sector on the consumption side, the district energy supply. This was indeed a great example. There are already a few questions that the attendees have typed in, and I would like to invite you to take advantage of this opportunity. So just a couple of quick questions, Chris. So this comes from Andrew Byers. I apologize if I don't pronounce the names correctly. He asks, does financial viability of the SEFC include capital cost recovery and additional city staffing costs? What is the... Yes, go ahead, one at a time.
Yes, it does. So it's recovering its capital costs and its operating costs, including the staffing that manage the system.
Mm-hmm. And Andrew asks as well, what is the system annual revenue? If this is something you can share.
Yeah, just take me a second to. Our revenue is growing quite rapidly with our customer base. So I apologize. It'll take me a second to look that up. We're at about 3.5 million. Oh, sorry. So this year our total revenue is it's about 4.3 million.
Okay. Thanks for that. So now another question that comes from Thibaut Lochter, and he comments, quite inspiring, thank you. How do the private developers get involved in the connection?
For the Southeast False Creek system, so if a developer is building in the neighborhood, there is of Southeast False Creek, there is a requirement to connect. When a owner of real estate decides to move forward with development of their land, we give them a package of information so that they have all the info they need to know about what's involved with connecting the system, what are the rates, what can we expect going forward, like how will this thing be designed to integrate with my development. So there's a lot of information sharing. We also get quite involved early on in the design process for the buildings to ensure that they have all the information they need to design the building to work well with the utility. And it's just a lot of communication, and it's not very early on, before the system was operational, we had a lot of questions and concerns from developers around, will this system be available when I need it, will it work, and everything. And we're at the stage now where it's not really on their radar very much. They have a fairly high level of confidence that it will be available, that it works well, they know what the rates are already, so they don't really have to pay very much attention to the utility. They can focus their attention managing the zillions of other challenges and risks that come with a major land development in the city.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much for your complete reply. That was great. Thibaut had asked the second part, but you've already addressed, is the heat rate incentive sufficient, or is there any regulatory framework? And you've already addressed that. Thanks for that. So another question comes from Andrew Byers. Does financial viability... Oh, apologies. Next one. Jörg Dickerhoff. How does the False Creek District Energy System utilize waste heat from the sewage system?
So, sorry, is the question, how does it utilize waste heat from the sewage system? I didn't totally, it wasn't very clear.
That's how it was typed. Perhaps a little bit about the technology, how might that be? Otherwise, I think we also have the opportunity for Jörg, if you'd like to further detail, you can either type or we can actually try to unmute you. Let me see if I can do
that. I'm sorry. Is there a question? Yeah. I can only hear about 2/3 of the words on your end.
Hi, this is Louisa. I'll just repeat the question for you. So Jörg asks, how does the Falls Creek DES utilize waste heat from the sewage system? Indeed. So.
Oh, okay. So we have, so we're taking raw untreated sewage. So we have a sewage pump station that that we would normally need to build for the neighborhood that pumps sewage away to the treatment plant. Before we pump the sewage away to the treatment plant, which is located out of the city, we run the sewage through a filter, a traveling screen filter, which removes all the solids from the sewage. So, and then we run the sewage through a heat pump system. So we run the sewage directly through the evaporators of a heat pump. The heat pump transfers the heat from the sewage to our district energy systems. Then the sewage is then just returned to the pump station and recombined with the solids that we filtered out and pumped away. So that's like at a really basic level how it works. But if you want more details on how it the technical design of it, I'd be happy to share that outside of this teleconference.
I think that was a good overview, Chris. Thank you for that. And so we're talking about the raw sewage, correct?
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So thank you very much. Let me also ask a question to Yuill. And this is regarding. It's also a question that comes from Andrew Barnes, and he asks. How accurate are capital costs determined in the model? Would you like to comment on this, Yuill?
Please unmute yourself.
Sure. Yeah, does that work? So the question was, sorry, it's a bit fuzzy, but was how are capital costs determined within the model?
How accurate are they determined?
Oh, how accurate? Well, they're generalized.
Sorry, I'll read it exactly as it was typed. How are accurate capital costs determined in the model? That's how it was typed.
Right. So right now, so the user can input if they have localized capital costs. For example, as in the case of Vancouver, you could put those specific capital costs in the model and change the assumptions specific to a particular context. There are default capital costs within the model, which actually come from this amazing resource that the Danish government provides, which is a catalog of technologies and associated prices. So we've pre-populated the model with all of those capital costs and other costs as well, operating costs and so forth, using that catalog, which our understanding is that those are fairly consistent, at least in European and North American jurisdictions, because a lot of the technologies or the equipment is the same. But certainly, if you want increased accuracy, you can go in and adjust those to reflect a particular jurisdiction.
Okay, that's clear. Okay, thanks for that. Okay, very good. I think the questions are addressed. I would also like to say, because there were a couple of people that asked about this, that both the presentations and the webinar recording will be made available through the Solutions Gateway. So you'll have the opportunity also again to follow up with us. So I'd like to thank you very much.
Anna,
now,
sorry for interrupting. This is Louisa. There was actually a question to your talk earlier on from Thibaut. He was asking if you could elaborate on the typical values of energy density that are considered for district heating and cooling feasibility assessments.
I apologize, and I didn't mention that. Actually, you will address that during his presentation. But thank you very much for flagging this, Louise. I had missed it, and I apologize, Thibaut. So, as you will said, indeed, this varies a lot depending on the local context and the local circumstances. In any case, If you are with a city, if you work with a city or with a city-owned energy utility, I would like to invite you to register for the Solutions Gateway and to browse the solution. I can actually show you online. To browse the solution that talks about district heating. So if you click on the solution, we do have some information in the required actions section. That's where you'll find more detail. And if you scroll down to the technology part, you'll have some information there. Of course, these are just indicative values, and they vary a lot, of course, depending on the circumstances. And it is good to indeed use some of the available tools to explore for your particular context. So with this, I would like to move to the final slides. Thank you to both Chris and Yuill. Please stay with us still if you can. I would also like to say back regarding the Solutions Gateway that this is a platform that ICLEI is managing, but indeed we do this in cooperation with many organizations, including, of course, the partners in the Global District Energy in Cities Initiative. And here, of course, I would like to publicly thank for the contributions of different partners, including Yuill, of course, to the Sustainability Solutions Group. I would also, although Nico is not here, of course, I would also like to thank the Delft University of Technology. But these are a few examples only. I would also like to extend a thank you to, for example, Gothenburg Energy, to the Celsius Project, to Carbon Trust, and other organizations like the International District Energy Association that are pooling resources, already existing resources, but also expertise and time in pooling together these resources that can really help local governments in advancing modern district energy within their jurisdiction and in cooperation with neighbor municipalities as well. So for a very quick wrap-up, I would like to say that if your city is interested in joining the initiative and continuing to benefit from webinars such as this or other events or resources that are made available through the initiative, please consider joining. Joining is at no cost, is done at no cost, and the process is very simple. And we can even provide a template for the letter of interest to doing so. Also, this will give you opportunity to tap into the upcoming webinars, such as these two. We already have one planned for February and another planned for April. We are focusing, well, today we focused a lot on strategy and policy regulation and setting up the administrative procedures in alignment with that strategy. And we heard the great testimony from the city of Vancouver. We heard from the city of Rotterdam as well. So in the upcoming webinars in 2017, we'll continue to go into the project level and look at business cases and business models, financial structuring, and so on. So we hope you'll find these topics of interest. If you have additional suggestions, of course, we are interested to hear. And these are some additional opportunities, both for cities and for partners in the call. Indeed, if you have resources that you would like to pool, that you find relevant to any of these topics that we've been talking about, please let us know. Also, an invitation, of course, because we always give recognition to the source of the information, both to the individual experts that contribute and to the organizations. And, of course, we would like also to invite the cities to report on their actions and targets regarding district energy in the Carbon Climate Registry. This is a global database that is once again available for free to all local governments, and this is used for global advocacy. And also, of course, stay tuned for the upcoming contents for the Solutions Gateway that we continue to work on throughout these coming weeks. We look forward to hearing more from you, from your cases, from the challenges, but also your expectations, how you'd like to benefit from the global district energy in cities, how you'd like to engage. Please let us know. We look forward to hearing from you. Okay, in any case, here are our contacts, and as I was saying, we warmly invite you to connect, and if you are interested in joining the initiative as a running city, please let us know. Our role, the roles of ICLEI, is also to promote and to facilitate contacts and exchange between the different local governments, and also, of course, between the experts in the different areas that can assist the local governments in their particular area of interest. So stay tuned for the upcoming activities. We hope to meet again in the near future. Once again, a very warm thank you to the speakers, to all the speakers, Chris Barber, Yuill, Herbert, and Nico, Tillie. Thank you also, Louisa, for your support, and of course, thank you very much to Benjamin Hickmann, for your engagement, and of course, to the support from United Nations Environment. With this, I would then like to conclude the webinar until one next time. Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.